I'd like to add that hospitals are a bit different in the way they function than a family physician's type practice. Family physicians, it's their own business. A hospital is a large business. There is a definite culture that drives the relationships, the interactions, the pecking order. There is politics galore in a hospital. And you know, you ask how could they do one thing one day and then another day have their different approaches. You know, they were loving, socially active people in the 1940s in Nazi Germany, yet the whole nation was moved in a direction of an immoral eugenics movement. Once dehumanization sets in, that's going to happen, whether or not the person has loving relations and is capable of all these, you know, virtuous qualities. If there's dehumanization, all the rules go out the window because the interpretation's wrong. And I think, to answer your question, I think the biggest reason why it happens in hospital settings is culture, and there's a dehumanization that happens when there is a parent that is advocating a way that confronts their system, that is interfering with their efficient system and way of doing things. You become a target. You're an annoyance. You're a troublemaker. You're rocking the boat. Dehumanization those are the things that could start allowing that to happen. And then people who are otherwise good can do bad things. Having said that, I really believe, like you do, because we have a lot of friends who are physicians, and they are among the most respected members of our society for a good reason, in part, because not only do they provide a good service, but we know a lot of wonderful physicians. And even at that hospital where we had the most trouble, there are some excellent, the majority I would think are excellent. But it's what I said before, there's a small percentage that are influential. And if you don't submit to that culture as a doctor who's in a subordinate position, your career will be affected. It will be. I won't get into it. Our pediatrician in Toronto has a story about this when he was in his residency. It's incredible, the political pressure, the subculture pressure you're under to do things their way, the system's way, and to not mess with it. So good people will do bad things. And I think it's dehumanization that will set in certain situations.
Is that what happened with your position? When you had somebody who you thought the world of, and all of a sudden, what's going on there?
You know what, I don't know for sure. I think again, kind of in retrospect, he just believes that people with disabilities don't have any value. And he didn't want us to be burdened. He thought we were better than that. That was just his personal belief. And because we had this relationship, I guess he felt, I had listened to his advice on a lot of things through a lot of years. Because I thought he made sense before this moment, I guess, because it didn't impact my values in the way that this did. But what I've come to believe, and I don't know because I've never had the conversation with him, but when I just remember that conversation, it's because I think he truly believes that people with disabilities are a burden, and why would we want that burden? Because I remember one of his first statements was, we were having trouble getting pregnant, now we got pregnant, and he said, well, you know, you can get pregnant again. So if that's the challenge. So you know what, I don't know, that's my guess. I think it's beyond just being a physician. I think for him it was a cultural, how we value people.
There are also, and I don't think that we can ignore it, there are crass economic reasons that enter into this as well. And so because somebody decides that they will treat your baby, that baby is in a bed in a hospital that some other physician's patient might be in. There's also the thing, and this has a terrible impact on primary care, that doctors in Canada are paid primarily by the procedure. And you're paid by the procedure whether you have a patient that you can do that procedure on in 5 minutes or it takes 45 minutes to do the same procedure. And we actually see in a number of cases when doctors are disability friendly, they tend to become ghettoized because then all of the people with disabilities go to those doctors. And so the doctors who have nobody with a disability are taking patients every 5 minutes and they're making 5 times as much money. And we've actually had circumstances in which doctors, it has been challenged whether doctors' hospital privileges will be removed because their length of stay for bed utilization for any given procedure is higher than anybody else, and that the underlying reason is that they have patients with disabilities, and so instead of going home after a tonsillectomy in 1 day, they're staying in the hospital for 5 days. The hospital looks at that and they say, this is a bad doctor.
We're in an envelope-funded healthcare system here, like in Ontario, and they do actually have budgets for how many of certain procedures they can conduct. So there's the financial aspect on a provincial level of funding for the healthcare system that's envelope-funded. And there's one other factor, though, that came into focus at one point when we were dealing with Katya, that they think of it not just as money, but resources. They were concerned that our daughter, with this supposed lower quality of life prospect, would be getting ahead of some other kids, and that wait may cause the other kids who waited to die. So other kids deserve to die less than, our daughter deserved to have more of a prospect of dying than the others. That's what it came down to. And she didn't deserve the priority. And I think it's all the dehumanization. Another psychiatrist, Aaron Copeland, a modern one, I mean, he was the complete opposite. My wife's a psychiatrist, by the way, so I got to give a good plug for psychiatry here. He really pointed out how this happens in a book. I think it's Love's Execution or something like that. But this is about dehumanization. They have to justify doing something terrible, sinister to people somehow, and the way to do it is through dehumanization. And he outlines it very well in that book, worthwhile reading. It's a different title, I'm sorry.